Hello, and welcome back to the third episode of In Case You Missed It, bringing you the biggest stories out of Richmond, Washington, and from around the world. Since we are now officially in 2024, we are also officially in election year. In November of this year, Americans will go to the polls to elect the House of Representatives, a third of the Senate, governors in certain states, and the one everyone will be watching, the president. The election officially kicked off on Monday, January 15th, as voters in Iowa participated in the Republican caucus for president. Today's episode is going to be about just that, the results, the aftermath, and what we can expect going forward. Let's get into it. Biggest headline out of the night, former President Donald Trump won Iowa, and it was not particularly close. With nearly all the votes reporting, Trump finished with just over 51%, the highest for any non-incumbent candidate in the Iowa caucus and caucus history. Behind him was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis with around 21%, then former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley with just over 19%. The next highest candidate was Vivek Ramaswamy, who garnered 7.7% of the vote and announced on Monday that he would suspend his campaign and endorse Trump. In the Iowa caucus, at least for Republicans, voters go to their caucus sites where they check in and join other voters in a large room at various community centers. Then, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, each candidate on the ballot is allowed to have a surrogate or support at each caucus site who gives a 3-minute speech to voters present on why they should support their candidate. Then, following this, voters indicate their choice for president on a paper ballot, which is then submitted and counted by hand. Former President Trump was projected as the winner of the Iowa caucus only around 30 minutes after the caucus began, meaning many voters knew he had won before they had even gotten the chance to vote. Governor DeSantis' campaign referred to this as election interference on caucus night. Courtesy of C-SPAN, here are some of his remarks from his speech on Monday.
The media was against us. They were writing our obituary months ago. They even called the election before people even got a chance to vote. But they were just so excited about the fact that they were predicting that we wouldn't be able to get our ticket punched here out of Iowa. But I can tell you, because of your support, in spite of all of that they threw at us, everyone against us, we've got our ticket punched out of Iowa.
These caucuses were the coldest in Iowa history, with wind chills down to negative 35 degrees in some places. This raised questions about turnout, as the number of voters turning out to the polls depended on how many were willing to brave cold temperatures to caucus for their candidate. A poll taken prior to the caucuses measured candidate enthusiasm, which showed Trump with the most enthusiastic supporters that were most likely to turn out. 49% of Trump supporters referred to themselves as, quote, extremely enthusiastic, while 23% of DeSantis supporters and only 9% of Haley supporters said the same. Turnout was around 70,000 voters lower than 2016, though was on level with years past. Pundits have marked Monday's results as disappointing for Governor DeSantis and Ambassador Haley, both of which trail former President Trump by nearly 50% according to the national 538 polling average. It was generally agreed that Haley or DeSantis needed strong finishes in Iowa to bolster their campaigns into the next set of primaries, and while the Haley and DeSantis campaigns have insisted that they punch their ticket out of Iowa, their campaigns have likely been dented by Trump's landslide victory. Ambassador Haley has continued to frame the race as a two-person contest between herself and Trump, despite her third-place finish in Iowa, hoping to solidify herself as the primary anti-Trump candidate going into New Hampshire. Here are some of her remarks from caucus night, also courtesy of C-SPAN.
Iowa did what Iowa always does so well. The pundits will analyze the results from every angle. We get that. But when you look at how we're doing in New Hampshire, in South Carolina, and beyond, I can safely say, tonight, Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race.
You may be wondering, what's next in the race for the presidency? While former President Trump finished strong in Iowa, he is not completely out of the woods yet. The next primary will be in New Hampshire, in which Ambassador Haley has been shown polling within single digits of Trump. This is partly because more independents and Democrats will vote in the Republican primary, of which many will cross over and vote for Haley as a vote against Trump as the Republican nominee. Furthermore, Trump has performed better with evangelicals and born-again Christians, of which there are significantly less of in New Hampshire compared to Iowa. However, the math is tough for DeSantis and Haley after New Hampshire. The states voting next will be Nevada, South Carolina, and Michigan, all of which Trump leads in significantly according to polls. polls. The math is particularly tough for DeSantis, as South Carolina is Haley's home state. She served as governor from 2011 to 2017, and he has yet to crack double digits in Michigan, according to polling. DeSantis has also slipped into third place nationally and sits at only 5% in New Hampshire. Following these states, the Republican candidates will move on to Super Tuesday, where 16 states, including Virginia, will cast their ballots. That said, it is unclear if Haley and DeSantis can make it to Super Tuesday without a victory in at least one of the early states. With Iowa in the books, time is ticking. The New Hampshire primary also means that the Democratic primary will begin next Tuesday, being the first test of the two challengers to President Joe Biden in his quest for re-election. President Biden did not file for the ballot in New Hampshire following the state Democratic Party defying a new National Democratic Party rule that set their primary later in the season after the New Hampshire primary has historically gone first after Iowa. This means his campaign will depend on voters writing in his name instead of voting for one of the listed candidates, which around 60% of voters plan to do according to a new poll. His main challengers, Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips and author Marianne Williamson, have gone all in on the New Hampshire primary to try and bolster their campaigns nationally. That said, it is unlikely they will find success outside of New Hampshire due to the nature of incumbency. The current president has almost always been easily renominated by their party. Polling indicates at this point that the country will see a rematch between President Biden and former President Trump in November, but time will tell if voters on either side say differently. There are also some independent and third-party candidates that could throw a wrench into things, but we'll talk about that at a later date. I've been Tyler Bagent, and this has been In Case You Missed It. Check back next time for more news across the state, country, and from around the world. Have a good one.